Hi, I'm Jedi Master Josh. Thanks for watching. Today I'm going to be talking about the infamous, well now infamous, memo that has come out from the House Intelligence Committee that has created the hashtag release the memo that is trending on social media. It's basically caused the internet to, be set on fire, and it has caused an insane amount of controversy. People on the right see it as a document that is going to expose the police state tactics that were used by the Obama administration through the Department of Justice and the FBI. They think that it's going to expose the fact that Obama spied on President Trump and his team throughout their campaign and beyond. And people on the left, of course, think that it is nothing but a partisan document that in some cases may be factually inaccurate, and that in any case omits certain facts that would paint a more full picture. But I'm going to go through what sort of the outlying story behind the memo is, and I'm going to sort of go through the controversy in depth. So the memo is supposedly going to actually name people, which is one of the reasons that it's so controversial. Some of the people that it's going to name, supposedly, include the Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, the Deputy Attorney General, basically the acting Attorney General when it comes to the Russian investigation going on currently in the Department of Justice and FBI, and also former FBI Director James Comey. And of course, it will also be naming other people. Those are just some key figures for sure. Now, this memo, again, is super controversial, but there are certainly some facts that there are some things that we know that I think are important for me to bring up right now. So first I want to talk about the former NSA director. His name was Mike Rogers. Now, this guy was appointed by Obama in 2014. Now, that's important to remember that fact. Now, in May 2017, last year, he testified before Congress, and his testimony was revelatory. He basically exposed the fact that as the NSA director, he noticed that there were some severe abuses of the surveillance powers of the NSA and FBI, and they were serious enough that he basically had an audit of the NSA be done and came to some rather shocking conclusions. But first, I want to play the clip of former NSA Director Mike Rogers in his May 2017 testimony.
Admiral Rogers, this spring, NSA decided to stop doing about queries. That was a long conversation that's happened there. It's now come out in the public about that conversation, that was identified as a problem. The court agreed with that, and that has been stopped. What I need to ask you is, who first identified that as a problem?
The National Security Agency did.
Okay, so how did you report that? Reported that to who? How did that conversation go once you identified we're uncomfortable with this type?
So in 2016, I had directed our Office of Compliance, let's do a fundamental baseline review of compliance associated with 702.
Okay.
We completed that effort. My memory is I was briefed on something like October the 20th. That led me to believe the technical solution that we put in place is not working with the reliability that's necessary here. I then, from memory, went to the Department of Justice and then on to the FISA court at the end of October. I think it was something like the 26th of October, and we informed the court we have a compliance issue here, and we're concerned that there's an underlying issue with the technical solution we've put in place. We told the court we're going to need some period of time to work our way through that. The court granted us that time. In return, the court also said we will allow you to continue 702 under the 16 authorizations, but we will not reauthorize 17 until you show us that you have addressed this.
So in former NSA Director Mike Rogers' testimony in May 2017, he pointed out that he noticed as NSA director that there were violations of Section 702, specifically Item 17 violations of Section 702, which is called about queries. Now, I know that all sounds kind of weird maybe to some of you. So Section 702 is a portion of the FISA Act, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Section 702 basically allows for warrantless surveillance of American citizens under some cases. Now, you have to get a FISA warrant, basically. A FISA court, so-called, which is a small panel of judges, is appointed to basically approve, the spying and collection of data if you can prove that the person you're spying on is acting on behalf of a foreign agent. Well, part of Section 702 is Item 17, and it's called About Queries, and that allows for the FBI to pull data, to pull data from the NSA databanks. Now, the NSA, the National Security Agency, is basically monitoring everything that's going on. They have stored in massive databases basically everybody's cell phone calls, conversations, emails, activity on social media, things of that sort. It's all there. It's all available to be pulled upon in raw form. And the FBI, under some cases, under Section 702 of the FISA Act, can do that. Now, what Admiral Mike Rogers noticed is that there were severe abuses of Section 702 by the NSA and FBI. NSA and FBI working together, the NSA allowing the FBI to take the information from its databases. And it concerned him so much that in mid-2016, Admiral Rogers ordered the NSA compliance officer to run a full audit on 702 NSA compliance. So he orders for a full audit to be done of the NSA, 702 surveillance. And on October 20th, or 26th, rather, on October 20th, he was briefed by the compliance officer. And then on October 27th, after he was briefed, several days after, 2016, he went to the court. He actually went to the FISA court, the full FISA court, and he basically informed them about the 702 violations. And he also stopped the about query, portion of 702 permanently. Now, that's very key, and we know this happened because we can go to the actual NSA.gov, and as you can see here, the headline, NSA stops certain Section 702, quote, upstream activities, and goes on to say, these changes are designed to retain the upstream collection that provides the greatest value to national security while reducing the likelihood that NSA will acquire communications of U.S. persons or others who are not in direct contact with one of the agency's foreign intelligence targets. So, in other words, they were, as it says, they're collecting information on people who weren't necessarily, they're collecting this raw data that's always collected by the NSA and taking it on people who weren't necessarily in contact with the foreign agents that they're supposedly surveilling, which obviously is an abuse of their power, something that they should not be doing. And so that was stopped. That was stopped permanently. It was changed to where they had to. They could only, monitor conversations that are either going to or coming from the person that they're targeting specifically. And it was, the NSA director that was so concerned about all this that he, ordered the audit and then met with the FISA court, told them that there were these abuses, and, again, stopped the about query portion of Section 702 permanently. And if we look at the actual FISA court opinion that was made because of, at least in part, Mike Rogers, Admiral Mike Rogers going to the FISA court, we can actually pull up the declassified, redacted version of the actual document, which is dated April 26, 2017. Remember, this is the actual, it's the memorandum, opinion, and order, the actual document from the FISA court, the actual FISA court review, spelling out the abuses that were done by the FBI and NSA. And on page 20, it says, clearly, The court found that, in light of the recent revelations, it did not have sufficient information to assess whether the proposed minimization procedures accompanying the initial 2016 certifications would comply with the statutory and Fourth Amendment requirements as implemented. And the fourth requirement, obviously, is the right against unlawful search and seizure of, including, your documents and personal effects, of which this was an abuse. What they did, spying on General Flynn and others, as I'll get into a little bit more in depth here in a bit. And the minimization procedures that it says here is basically saying that even if you are even if you have a FISA court order and you're surveilling somebody, you have to basically minimize under certain cases. If somebody out of state is talking with somebody in the United States and they got a FISA court and you think this person's acting on behalf of an agent, you can listen to their communications unless the person starts talking about their grandchildren, for example, or they start talking about something completely off topic of what was in the scope of the actual investigation in the first place. If they start talking about anything that just is their personal lives, you have to actually minimize it at that point, and you're not supposed to actually be able to listen in on those types of communications. And it's saying here that they abused that and were actually listening in basically on conversations that had nothing to do, in emails or what have you, data in whatever form, that had nothing to do with with the actual investigation, the actual reason that they got the FISA, court application in the first place, or the reason that they're spying under Section 702. And it goes on page 83 to say, the following violations of the FBI's minimization procedures merit discussion. And number one here says, improper disclosures of raw information. On March 9th, 2016, DOJ oversight personnel conducted a minimization review at the FBI's redacted, learned that the FBI had disclosed raw FISA information, including but not limited to Section 702 acquired information, redacted to a compliance report at 92 as part of the redacted, of course, and is largely staffed by private contractors. Now that's the key part there. So it's basically saying that they were giving the FBI was giving raw FISA, or raw data from the NSA, raw surveillance data from the NSA that they probably shouldn't have even had in the first place. Again, they weren't using the proper minimization procedures. They were actually listening in on conversations that had nothing to do with, for example, somebody being a Russian agent. And that's definitely not good. Now, this is saying, again, that they were taking some of this information that they're getting and actually giving it to private contractors. Now, more than likely, that private contractor is going to turn out to be none other than Fusion GPS. As we're finding out more and more that that Fusion GPS, the private contracting firm that was contracted by the DNC and Hillary Clinton, was also working with the FBI and the Department of Justice while it was gathering information from its contact, Christopher Steele, a former British spy, and others who had connections to people in Russia, current and former government officials in Russia that were providing dirt, which proved that turned out to be mostly unverified or false, even at this point. And they used that to basically used opposition research to basically try to get a FISA application. So we're finding out more and more that the FBI, the DOJ, was working hand in glove with Fusion GPS. They were working together, is what it is basically seems like at this point, to sabotage the Trump campaign. And it is a absolutely massive scandal because the information, again, from the Russians. It's funny that they say that Trump and his team, colluded with the Russians when it's actually the other way around. This information that the FBI used, almost certainly, to get a FISA court application was unverified. And that is a big no-no. When you're using information to get a FISA court, you have to bring information that is verified, or you have to bring information from a source that is that is proven to be, that is proven to be legitimate in the past. Both of which, or neither of which, happened in this case. So it's definitely some serious criminal activity. Now, so Admiral Rogers, NSA Director Admiral Rogers, on October 26th, he informs the FISA court of all these abuses. Then the FISA court, it comes out with this memorandum, eventually in April 2017, spelling out, all these different abuses by the FBI and the NSA. Now, October was a key month because in October you had several things that were happening. You had the finished dossier, the finished Russian dossier, which again was compiled by Fusion GPS, that was hired by Hillary Clinton and the DNC, that worked with the FBI and DOJ while they were collecting information from Russians that turned out to be false. And that information was used by the FBI, almost certainly, to get a FISA warrant to spy on Trump. Huge scandal. And Admiral Rogers is one of the main people who helped to expose this whole thing. Well, in November, just not even a month after Admiral Rogers meets with the FISA court to spell out all these abuses, Admiral Mike Rogers meets with then President-elect Donald Trump. He's now in the transition period. He meets Donald Trump in Trump Tower in New York, and he actually didn't tell his boss, James Clapper, about that, which caused its own controversy. But he met with the president on November 17th in 2016, during the transition period, President-elect Trump. The next day, on November 18th, the Trump transition team announced they were moving all transition activity to Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, New Jersey. So, the guy who just exposed all these FISA abuses goes and doesn't tell his boss, James Clapper, right after this, not even a month after this, and meets with Trump at Trump Tower, and then goes, and then, the next day, Trump and the transition team move out of Trump Tower. Okay, I'm not saying the guy told him he was being spied on, but the guy told him he was being spied on. So, it's funny that Trump actually said that he was being spied on in Trump Tower. He got a lot of flack for that, but it seems like that tweet is actually aging particularly well. So that's sort of a little bit of the background on Admiral Mike Rogers and that whole situation. Definitely, explosive. Absolutely just insane, that whole story. But really, it's just a small piece of just an incredible series of events that is taking place. I mean, this is truly an amazing point in this country's history. But now I want to bring you to Devin Nunes, another, you could say, hero of this story, of which there aren't too many, unfortunately, compared to the villains. But Devin Nunes is definitely one of them, as is, obviously, Admiral Mike Rogers. Well, Devin Nunes is the chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, and also a member of the Gang of Eight. So there are several intelligence committees, so-called, which are made up of members of the House and the Senate. There are the two actually come together, two from each, two from the House Intelligence Committee and two from the Senate Intelligence Committee, come together along with the Speaker of the House and the Minority Leader of the House, as well as the majority and minority leaders of the Senate. Those 8 people all get together to form what is called the Gang of Eight, which is basically just another intelligence committee that is built up of 4 members of each party. So it's sort of a mix. And these people actually have, more access to classified information than people necessarily would in the other individual intelligence committees. Well, that's important because these intelligence committees are the committees that oversee. They're the people who investigate the people that are investigating people. So if there's investigations going on at the FBI, say a counterintelligence investigation, they're the people who would oversee that investigation. The House Intelligence Committee, Senate Intelligence Committee, and the Gang of Eight as well as the judiciary committees as well. But anyways, those committees oversee the activities of the FBI, the DOJ, the NSA, whatever. They oversee the investigative activities. Well, we know now from a March 20th, 2017 congressional testimony that James Comey was a part of, testified before Congress, that the FBI did not inform Congress about these investigations. They did not inform the intelligence committees that they were investigating Team Trump. And that's very, very important. So let's play this video of James Comey.
In your opening statement, you confirmed that there is a counterintelligence investigation currently open, and you also referenced that it started in July. When did you notify the DNI, the White House, or senior congressional leadership?
It's a good question. Congressional leadership, sometime recently, they were briefed on the nature of the investigation in some detail, as I said. Obviously, the Department of Justice has been aware of it all along. The DNI, I don't know what the DNI's knowledge of it was because we didn't have a DNI until Mr. Coates took office, and I briefed him his first morning in office.
So just to drill down on this, if the open investigation began in July and the briefing of congressional leadership only occurred recently, why was there no notification prior to the past month?
I think our decision was it was a matter of such sensitivity that we wouldn't include it in the quarterly briefings.
So, as you can see, James Comey was definitely not ready for that whatsoever. Oh, that's a good question, he says, as he tries to basically twist and try to come up with whatever, insane excuse that he can. It's just, you can tell that he definitely did not see that question coming. But what he said was very important, because he said right there that the reason that they did not tell Congress, that the intelligence committees, that they had, the oversight committees, that they had a counterintelligence investigation looking into Russian collusion ever since June or July of 2016. The reason they didn't inform Congress was because the head of the counterintelligence division of the FBI, a guy named Bill Priestap. Now, he didn't say his name, but the guy was Bill Priestap. He was the head of the counterintelligence division at the FBI. Apparently, Bill Priestap said that the FBI shouldn't inform Congress, and I wonder why. Maybe it's because they were illegally spying on the Trump campaign, using fake information that they got from the Russians, who were being paid by the Democrats and Hillary Clinton. So, yeah, that's just the insane world that we live in. So, now I want to explain something. There's something called a SCIF. Now, that probably sounds kind of weird, but it's a Sensitive Compartmentalized Information Facility, SCIF for short. What that is a secret area within respective agencies. Say the FBI, they have their own SCIF. The CIA has its own SCIF. The NSA has its own SCIF. Because all these agencies collect information and collect data. They have different sources and methods. And sometimes they, share information with each other. But for the most part, they keep their information within their respective agencies. And if you want to, if you have the clearance, obviously, and you want to view this information, you have to go into that respective agency's SCIF, so-called, and you get to view the information in the SCIF, and then right afterwards, it gets deleted, basically. So it's only in that secure place that you get to actually view the information. Well, the president gets what's called a presidential daily briefing. Every day he gets briefed by his different heads of his respective intelligence agencies, and he gets briefed on what's going on in the world geopolitically, and it's information compiled from all these different agencies into what's again called the presidential daily briefing. And the only people that are able to actually look at the full presidential briefing, the only people that have that level of clearance is the chairman and minority leaders of the House and Senate Intel committees. So those 4 people of the Gang of 8 are the only people that actually could have access to the full presidential daily briefing, which again would be all the different information. So remember, only those 4 people are able to actually view the full presidential briefing. So President Trump nominated this guy called Dan Coats as what's called the ODNI, the Director of National Intelligence, basically. He's the guy who oversees all these different intelligence agencies. Well, he was nominated on January 5th, 2017, but he was held up in his nomination until March 16th of 2017. Well, Devin Nunes, because he's one of the people that has, the ability to view some of the highest level intelligence, he has been, concerned about what was going on for quite some time leading up to this period. But it's interesting to note that right after Trump's pick for Director of National Intelligence, the guy who would be able to give access to the presidential daily briefings, had full access to them, right after that guy got nominated or actually sworn in on March 16th, right after that, on March 22nd, Devin Nunes actually went to the White House and viewed the presidential daily briefings, more than likely Obama's presidential daily briefings, in which Obama was getting all this information from the FBI, the NSA, and various other intelligence agencies as well. And in that presidential daily briefing, almost certainly was the fact that they were actually spying on the Trump team. So there's no way that Obama didn't actually know that any of this was going on. So this scandal is definitely going to wind up bringing him into it as well, for sure. So there's definitely going to be more to drop on that too in the future. But anyway, so Devin Nunes goes and views this information at the White House, and then he does something that was actually quite unprecedented for someone in his position. Right after he views this information at the White House, the full daily briefing, because remember, he would have to, without viewing the presidential daily briefing, he has to go to each of these compartmentalized SCIFs in these different intelligence agencies and view each little piece of the information. A very, very slow, process. And he was basically being stonewalled the entire time. But as soon as Trump's pick for DNI comes in, he then is able to go see the full briefing, the full presidential daily briefing, in full context. And what he saw was so disturbing to him that he did the unprecedented move of having an actual press conference. And in that press conference, he said that the intelligence product that he reviewed was not related to Russia or the FBI Russian counterintelligence investigation, meaning he was disturbed by it because they were spying on Trump's campaign while they were talking about things that had nothing to do with Russia, nothing to do with the counterintelligence investigation. And that is obviously a massive abuse of the surveillance powers of the executive branch. Just incredibly massive abuse. And again, he was so shocked by this that he had to do this press conference. Now, I'm going to play a video of some of this press conference, so let's go to that.
The administration, I don't think, is aware of this, so I want to make sure that I go over there and tell them what I know, because it involves them.
Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, you said this was not related to the Russia investigation?
It is the information that I have seen has nothing to do with Russia or the Russian investigation. So so bluntly put, everything that I was able to view did not involve Russia or any discussions with Russians or any Trump people or other Russians. None of it has to do with Russia. That doesn't mean that doesn't exist, but we don't have it.
So you can just see the look in the guy's face. He is freaked out because he knows full well that the former administration, the Obama administration, was massively abusing its powers, its surveillance powers via these surveillance agencies and intelligence agencies to spy on the opposing campaign. Because remember, Obama was 100% for Hillary Clinton. He campaigned for her, basically. He endorsed her 100%. He was for Hillary Clinton. The information the FBI was getting, at least partially, was based on a dossier, a Russian dossier that was put together by, in many cases, Russians. In some cases, current Russian officials. And this information, which is, either still unverified or has been proven to be false in some cases, was used, almost certainly, to spy on the Trump campaign. I mean, it's just an insanely massive, just massive conspiracy, really. I mean, it's not even a theory, it's an actual conspiracy. So, again, you can tell the guy's freaked out, and it's worth noting that both Devin Nunes and Admiral Mike Rogers were both just absolutely just hammered from the establishment, if you will, for what they did. Admiral Rogers was almost removed. He was actually basically almost removed as the head of the NSA because of the fact that he was that he had that meeting with Trump at Trump Tower without informing his boss, old lion James Clapper. Oh man, that guy's got it definitely plays a role in this, you could say, as well. And, you know, Devin Nunes was just attacked viciously by the Democrats in the media and was subject to different, ethics committee reviews and all this just insane nonsense, accused of being a Russian agent, just all this craziness. You know, the head of the House Intelligence Committee, you know, one of the members of the Gang of Eight, just insane, you know, that he would be getting this treatment. This guy with a, you know, just absolutely stellar record. You know, he's not someone who's been compromised in any way. He's not someone who's shown to be, you know, totally partisan in his past in any way. And then they're just viciously attacking him, as the Democrats love to do. Well, so they're just getting attacked viciously for being, you know, the actual good guys in the government. And there are some good guys in the government, and it's important to remember that. So several weeks ago, the House Intel Committee voted to let the full House review this memo. So this memo, the hashtag release the memo, this thing that's blown up the internet, and just got people, you know, mobilized politically just in just insane ways I've never even really seen before. This memo was the product of basically Devin Nunes, because he is the guy who has been the spearhead of exposing, you know, and investigating these abuses by the Obama administration. Well, he has created a memo now that basically summarizes, you know, much of the abuse, the abuse of Section 702, the abuse of the about queries, the fact that they got a FISA court warrant under, you know, circumstances that were not legitimate. Almost certainly, you know, no one knows fully what's going to be in the memo, but there's supposed to be just absolutely devastating information there that, you know, shows serious abuses of the surveillance state, and it's definitely going to. It's also going to name names, so there's going to be some people that are, at bare minimum, are going to have zero credibility after this, but these, you know, there's going to be a lot of people that may very well be facing, you know, criminal charges because they were engaged in some very, you know, very insanely illegitimate behavior, you could say. Well, so now this memo gets created by Devin Nunes, and the House Intelligence Committee that he's a part of votes to. They're the only people that currently were able to see this memo. Now, the House Intelligence Committee voted to release the memo, to actually make it available to the entire House of Representatives to view. And as the House of Representatives, you know, viewed it, and as it was able to go around, it's worth noting the vast majority of Republicans in the House viewed this memo, but only a handful of Democrats viewed it. So it's important to remember that fact. But here's some responses from some of the representatives that viewed the memo. So this is Mark Meadows. I viewed the classified report from the House Intel relating to the FBI FISA abuses, the infamous Russian dossier, and so-called Russian collusion. What I saw is absolutely shocking. This report needs to be released now. Americans deserve the truth. Hashtag release the memo. Representative Steve King said, I have read the memo. The sickening reality has set in. I no longer hold out hope that there is an innocent explanation for the information the public has seen. I have long said it is worse than Watergate. It was never Trump and always Hillary. Hashtag release the memo. Representative Ron DeSantis says, the classified report compiled by the House Intelligence is deeply troubling and raises serious questions about the upper echelon of the Obama DOJ and Comey FBI as it relates to the so-called collusion investigation. And there were, many other representatives that came out and were vocally in support of this memo being fully released to the public. And it got the hashtag release the memo to actually be trending on Twitter and Facebook. Well, that was not acceptable for the Democrat. So Representative Adam Schiff and Senator Dianne Feinstein sent a letter to the CEOs of Facebook and Twitter saying that the hashtag release the memo was only trending on social media because of, wait for it, Russian bots. Dun dun dun. It's the Russians again. Those crafty Russian bots. They're just all over on the internet. They just keep taking over. I mean, my goodness. You just can't go anywhere on the internet without running into some Russian bots just trying to manipulate you into thinking that Russia is the greatest place on the planet Earth. And this letter is just absolutely absurd. And I want to read this little part from it here. So it says, several Twitter hashtags, including release the memo, hashtag release the memo, calling for the release of these talking points attacking the Mueller investigation, were born in the hours after the committee vote. According to the German Marshall Fund's Alliance for Securing Democracy, this effort gained the immediate attention and assistance of social media accounts linked to Russian influence operations. By Friday, January 19th, 2018, the release the memo hashtag was, quote, the top trending hashtag among Twitter accounts believed to be operated by Kremlin-linked groups. Dun, dun, dun. The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. And it was an insane conspiracy theory that was debunked almost immediately, and it was debunked by, no other place other than the Daily Beast, which is definitely not a bastion of right-wingers, you could say. It is definitely pro-liberal for the most part. So definitely not a place that's going to come out with a story like that if it didn't basically have to. So just insane. I mean, it was not Russian bots that caused the hashtag to trend. It was actual Americans concerned about the the corruption at the highest levels of their government. So yeah, there's that. And this memo, they actually. They wound up voting to release the full memo. So the House on Monday decided to release the full memo. And what that means is the president now has 5 days, because the president has the final say. The president has now 5 days to basically object to the memo coming out, and if he doesn't, it's going to come out. And again, it happened on Monday, the House vote. So that, I guess, would be Saturday. That would be the final day for the memo to come out. Most people are saying that it's going to come out Friday this week. It would be tomorrow. Maybe not tomorrow by the time we get this video uploaded, but it is tomorrow at this point. So on Friday, supposedly the memo is going to come out. Who knows? It could, come out Friday. It could come out Sunday or maybe even Monday. Some people are saying, but the main theory now is that it's going to be coming out on Friday. Well, this all caused the vote on Monday for the releasing the memo. This all caused the Democrats to melt down and the mainstream media to absolutely melt down. And I want to play a video of MSNBC suggesting that Devin Nunes is a Russian agent. All right, let's play that clip.
Senator, it's John Heilman here. I want to ask you a question that under almost any other circumstances would be ridiculous and absurd, but under these circumstances I think is actually warranted. Is it possible that the Republican chairman of the House Intel Committee has been compromised by the Russians? Is it possible that they actually have a Russian agent running the House Intel Committee on the Republican side?
I hope that's not the case, and I certainly have no information to suggest that it is. I think that
doesn't his behavior speak of that, though? I mean, I'm not the first person who's raised this. He's behaving like someone who's been compromised, and there are people in the Intelligence Committee, in the intelligence community, and others with great expertise in this area who look at him and say, that guy's been compromised.
Well, I don't have that expertise. What I also know is that there are plenty of Republicans who simply instinctually act in a way to protect their president.
I mean, these people are just crazed, they're wild-eyed, they're just stuttering, they're talking too fast, they don't know what the heck they're saying. Just accusing the chairman of the, House Intelligence Committee, respected member of Congress for years, of being a Russian agent. I mean, my goodness, the depths that these people will stoop to. And this just shows how desperate they are. And I want to play another video of Adam Schiff. This was right after the vote, coming out and responding to the memo. So let's play that.
This is where we are. We had votes today to politicize the intelligence process, to prohibit the FBI and the Department of Justice from expressing their concerns to our committee and to the House, and to selectively release to the public only the majority's distorted memo without the full facts. A very sad day, I think, in the history of this committee. As I said to my committee colleagues during this hearing, sadly, we can fully expect that the President of the United States will not put the national interest over his own personal interest. But it is a sad day indeed when that is also true of our own committee.
Good old crazy bug-eyed Adam Schiff, looking crazier and more bug-eyed than ever, and in that he says that there was now a minority memo. Oh, there's now a Democratic memo that they want to send out. Only the thing is he wasn't making the memo available to other members of the House, like Devin Nunes did with his memo. He made it available to everybody. The Democrats, only a handful of them actually read the darn thing, but the vast majority of Republicans did. And now this Democrat memo comes out perfectly out of nowhere, and of course Adam Schiff won't let people read it, but he wants it released. And they voted not to release the Democrat memo, but voted to release the majority memo, and of course that caused the media to go crazy. Oh, they don't want to release the Democrat memo, but they'll release the Republican one. And of course, they don't give you the underlying facts whatsoever. Also, in that video, he says that the FBI and DOJ are now under a actual investigation by the House Oversight Committee. So that was an important revelation from that video. Now I want to go to a clip of Nancy Pelosi on CNN losing her... I mean, maybe she injected a little bit too much Botox today. She's just going a little crazy. Maybe she forgot to take her medication. I'm not sure what's going on, but she forgot to take her prune juice. Maybe she's a little, a little backed up. I don't know. I'm just saying she's going off. She's crazy on yelling at poor Chris Cuomo of all people. I mean, when the Democrats are attacking Chris Cuomo, that they have completely gone insane. She tells Chris Cuomo that he has no idea what he's talking about, which I actually would agree with on most cases, but actually not this one. So let's play that clip.
This isn't a subject about what's in the tax bill or what's not in the tax bill. This is a question of what is important to our national security to be secure. So, and again, let me take it to another subject, because they do these things as a distraction. It's totally irresponsible. It isn't one person in the intelligence community recognizing the sacrifice that our men and women in the intelligence community make for our country's security that would say this is not reckless.
Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, obviously, recently selected by President Trump. He got the memo. He could have come out and said, this is reckless, don't release it.
Let me just say this with all due respect. You really don't know what you're talking about right now.
And that is not the end of old Nancy Pelosi and old Stretch Pelosi's craziness. And you can see the madness in that woman's eyes. And they say Trump is crazy. Pelosi came out with a letter calling for Nunes to be, quote, removed immediately because apparently he's some kind of Russian agent or some such nonsense. good old Schumer, good old Chuck Schumer, the minority leader in the Senate, came out and attacked the memo, saying that it was, just horrible and terrible and the worst thing ever. But the funny thing is I'm pretty sure he didn't actually read the darn thing, because I don't think the Senate actually had access to it. So I don't know how the heck he's attacking something he hasn't read, but that's the Democrats. They don't actually need to have any logical basis behind what they do. They just do things and yell things and pretend to be for the common person or some such nonsense. And so what's in the memo? So what's actually in this darn thing that is causing so much fuss, so much craziness, so much insanity from the Democrats? Why are they pulling their hair out? Why are they writhing around? Why are they howling? Why are they gnashing their teeth? Why are they calling Devin Nunes a Russian agent and all this other absolute madness? Why is Nancy Pelosi, just looking more insane than usual? Why is Adam Schiff more bug-eyed than usual? Well, it's because these people, all in some way or another, are going to face consequences from this memo that range from being completely embarrassed for being so incredibly wrong to actually probably being implicated criminally. So the memo, again, reportedly names names. It reportedly names Andrew McCabe, the former, or the current, well, actually now former, because he just resigned, and we'll get to that a little bit more here in a second. But the former FBI deputy director, Andrew McCabe, is reportedly named in the memo, as is Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, as well as former FBI Director James Comey, and others reportedly. So what's in this memo? So it's going to be revelations that are going to show more in detail what a lot of people already know, that there was criminal behavior going on in the Department of Justice and the FBI, and or more than likely criminal behavior at least, or definitely behavior that is going to the edge of legal and definitely illegitimate in any case, because it's something that you shouldn't be doing. Was it maybe some of it legal, possibly? Well, perhaps, yeah, but certainly there was a lot of stuff in here that absolutely was 100% illegal, and there are almost certainly going to be people that are going to be implicated criminally here. But some people, as I said, are simply more than likely going to be very embarrassed by their involvement in this whole Russian collusion conspiracy theory. And one of those people may be Adam Schiff himself, one of the people who is fighting so hard to keep this memo from being released to the public. Now I want to go to a video of Trey Gowdy, Congressman Trey Gowdy, describing why old Shifty Schiff might just be a little tad bit embarrassed by the release of this memo. Let's play that clip.
My Democrat colleagues didn't want us to find this information. They did everything they could to keep us from finding this information. So, of course, they don't want us to share.
Will it be embarrassing to them?
I think it'll be embarrassing to Adam Schiff once people realize the extent to which he went to keep them from learning any of this. So that would be the embarrassment.
Go ahead. What do you mean by that?
I mean, going to court to help Fusion GPS, so we can't find out that they paid for the dossier, yeah, and that they were working for the DNC. That's a pretty big step to go to court to try to keep the American people from learning something. So look, if it were up to Adam Schiff, you wouldn't know about Hillary Clinton's email, you wouldn't know about the server, you wouldn't know who paid for the dossier. So I do find it ironic that he has his own memo now, because if it were up to him, we wouldn't know any of it.
So apparently old Shifty Schiff actually went to such great lengths as to go to court to try to prevent the revelation that from coming out that Fusion GPS was actually paid by the Democrats, because of course he is himself in the Democrat Party, and this is going to be a scandal a million times worse than Watergate for them. So they don't want it to see the light of day in any way, shape, or form. So the current FBI director is a guy named Christopher Wray. Now, this guy went and he was able to. He was one of a few people in the FBI, one of only several, two maybe even literally, that have actually seen this memo. But right after he saw this memo, he said that he was, quote, shocked to his core. And right after he saw the memo, Andrew McCabe, the deputy FBI director, got removed. He had to resign right after the FBI director saw that memo. So, yeah, it seems like almost certainly he saw something in that memo that directly implicated Andrew McCabe himself, and certainly caused, almost certainly caused his resignation. Well, what may it have been in the memo that he saw? Well, one of it may have been the fact that old Andrew McCabe may have actually had agents change their witness testimony. So that brings me to PJ Media. Report: McCabe may have asked FBI agents to change 302 forms. Investigative journalist Sarah Carter reported on Fox News last night that outgoing FBI deputy director Andrew McCabe may be in serious trouble if the information she received from FBI sources proves to be true. Quote, I have been told tonight by a number of sources that McCabe may have asked FBI agents to actually change their 302s, Carter told host Sean Hannity. The 302 form contains information from the notes of an FBI agent that an FBI agent takes during an interview of a subject. It is used by FBI agents to, quote, report or summarize the interviews that they conduct. So McCabe apparently actually ordered these FBI agents to change some of these 302s, to change some of this witness testimony before actually officially filing it. Definitely a no-no. Definitely a no-no, you could say. So they go on to say in the interview that, if this is true, that he will be indicted for obstruction of justice, because that's exactly what it is, and that is one thing that may very well be in the memo. Another thing that I'm not sure if it'll be in the memo, but it seems to have been a recent revelation, is the fact that Andrew McCabe apparently sat on emails from the infamous Anthony Weiner, the emails that reopened the Clinton investigation. Apparently, Andrew McCabe was the person that sat on those emails and did not reveal them, allow them to be actually revealed to reopen the investigation. Also, good old Andrew McCabe, while his wife was running for the Virginia Senate, she got $500,000 from a Clinton crony, a guy named Terry McAuliffe, who's also the Virginia governor. Now, this happened, this $500,000 that the deputy director, FBI director, Andrew McCabe's wife got, this happened while he was investigating Hillary Clinton, and this was something that wasn't properly disclosed, and he's actually part of several investigations at this point, that situation being one of them. So, what you had here was one of many people in the FBI and apparently DOJ that were basically covering up for Clinton while trying to sabotage President Trump in some cases. And now I want to bring you to the Daily Caller, which was reporting that apparently Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, who is now the Acting Attorney General on matters, that have to do with the Russia investigation, because good old Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, recused himself for some, reason, who knows why. Anyways, the Daily Caller is reporting Rod Rosenstein renewed a spy warrant against Trump advisor last year. Shortly after taking office in April, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein renewed a secret surveillance warrant against former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, according to a 4-page memo that could be released to the public this week. The New York Times reports that the memo, which was compiled by Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee, states that Rod Rosenstein signed off on a renewal for a FISA warrant against Carter Page, a former Trump campaign advisor who features prominently in the infamous and unverified Steele dossier. And this Steele dossier that was compiled by the British agent, former British agent Christopher Steele, and other subcontractors, that was, compiled in part, at least, from information gained by Russians that, again, is either unverified or has been proven to be false. And one of the things that is subject to extreme controversy is the fact that Carter Page, the former Trump campaign advisor, is a part of the Steele dossier, because Carter Page was named in at least one of the FISA court applications, either the one in June and July that the FBI took to the FISA court, or the one in October. The one in July didn't go through. The one in October did finally go through. Now, if the FBI was using information from the Steele dossier, including Carter Page, because we know Carter Page was named in one of the FISA warrants, and we know he's part of the dossier, one or maybe both of the FISA warrants. We're not sure at this point. But it seems like that obviously if this is true, what's in the memo, then obviously that would be the case. But we're not 100% sure at this point. But it seems like they did use this unverified information to get a FISA court warrant to spy on Carter Page. Now, what did Carter Page do that was so evil? Well, how was he conspiring with the Russians? Well, they were able to prove that during the campaign he traveled to Russia. Yes, he traveled to Russia. They weren't able to prove that he did anything illegal or illegitimate, that he colluded with anyone or did anything. No, they were able to prove that he traveled to Russia. Big, gigantic, conspiracy there, for sure. So, it just goes to show how flimsy the basis of all this is. And Rod Rosenstein, the guy who was appointed by Trump, right after he gets appointed, apparently, renews this FISA application, which was completely illegitimate, in my view. This very same Rosenstein is the guy who also appointed Robert Mueller as the special counsel. So, it's turning out more and more that these individuals are just neck deep in the swamp, and they are absolutely part of the deep state, trying to basically sabotage Trump. More and more it's seeming like that is, at least to some extent, the case, to varying degrees with all these individuals. And now, some other things that may possibly be in this FISA memo. We're not sure what all is going to be in it. Again, it's basically laying out, sort of a broad, explanation of the abuse of the, of the FISA court warrants, of the FBI and the NSA and possibly other agencies in general, and the unmasking of individuals. All these, activities to spy on a campaign under a false pretense. Just totally illegitimate. But we know from these texts that we've gotten from this FBI agent, Peter Strzok, who was one of the top people in the counterintelligence division of the FBI investigating Trump. He and his mistress, Lisa Page, another FBI lawyer, a liaison, you could say, between the FBI and DOJ, sort of a middle person as a lawyer between the two agencies, what they were texting each other, having an affair, an extramarital affair. And in these texts, they were saying absolutely amazing things. They admitted that they helped to exonerate Hillary Clinton. They helped to change the language that of James Comey's memo that he came out with, exonerating Hillary. They changed the language, and Strzok did in particular, changed language that would have indicted Hillary Clinton under the the Espionage Act for gross negligence, but he changed that wording to extremely careless, which made a huge difference. Him and others like Rybicki, the guy who was the, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his name, but he was the chief of staff of the FBI. He actually had to resign himself recently, which was convenient timing because he was just about to testify before Congress. I'm sure that had nothing whatsoever to do with it. So these texts between, Strzok and Page were just incredible, showing that he was exonerating Hillary, showing that the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, had foreknowledge that Hillary Clinton was going to be exonerated, that she was going to be let off the hook, that was going to be the decision by the FBI. There was the fact that this guy, Peter Strzok, had interviewed key witnesses to the Hillary Clinton campaign, and in these texts we know that he hated Trump. He was pro-Hillary, clearly trying to exonerate her because he wanted to rise through the ranks of the FBI and wanted the Hillary Clinton to know that the FBI basically had her back throughout the campaign, and that way that he could he could rise through the ranks of the FBI. Seriously, that's what's now coming out in these texts. We know that he hated Trump voters. He was talking about an insurance policy against the President of the United States in a room with Andy, who many are suspecting is the Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. Stroke, Lisa Page, and Andrew McCabe met together and discussed an insurance policy to prevent or an insurance policy against the incoming president, the then candidate for President Trump. Candidate Trump then, to basically, compromise him somehow. And they talk about how, he is probably not going to win, going to be president, but just in case, we need to have this quote-unquote insurance policy. Just this insane stuff. This guy Stroke, this FBI agent investigating Trump, who's pro-Hillary, was working with Fusion GPS to, exchange information and to, use fake information from, a contractor hired by the DNC, information gathered from the Russians to spy, to get, a FISA warrant to spy on the incoming administration. Just insane levels of corruption. This is the same guy, Peter Stroke, that interviewed Michael Flynn and basically caught him in this perjury trap where he lied to the FBI because they had a transcript of conversations that he had with the Russian ambassador, and he didn't remember certain details of the conversation. I can't remember conversations I had with people yesterday. So just all these controversies that, especially this individual Peter Stroke, was involved in, are just mind-blowing. And we also know that on the DOJ side, the Department of Justice side, this couple, Bruce and Nellie Orr, were apparently corrupted in their own ways. Now, Bruce Orr was I believe, assistant deputy attorney general, I believe. I believe that was his title. There's just so many different government titles, it gets insane. But he was a high-level person in the Justice Department, the DOJ. And he was actually meeting with Fusion GPS in October, and he didn't disclose those meetings, and because of that, he basically got demoted after the Inspector General, who is investigating the FBI and Department of Justice and this whole Russian collusion investigation itself. He's investigating the investigators. He actually discovered that this guy and the top-level guy in the Department of Justice was meeting with Fusion GPS in October, right around the time they actually got the FISA warrant approved. And I mean, all the timing of all this stuff just lines up so perfectly. It paints such a clear picture. It's just absolutely insane. And his wife, at this time, his wife, Nellie Orr, was actually working for Fusion GPS, working for them on the Russian, collusion, on the actual case. She was working on the actual case of compiling, opposition research against Donald Trump, the wife of the top guy in the Department of Justice, who's also in contact with Fusion GPS. I mean, the level of insanity in all this just really never ends. So these are just an example of things that may or may not be in the memo. Some of this I know will more than likely be in the memo. Some of it I'm not too sure of the extent to which it will be. But for sure, again, what the memo is going to do is it's going to paint a outline of abuses at the highest levels of the government, and will more than likely show that a FISA court warrant to spy on the Trump campaign and the Trump transition team was gained with information that was either knowingly false or was not properly vetted. And that's going to be a serious problem for some people. There's going to be some serious consequences for some of this stuff, for sure. And that's why there are so many people that are going so crazy and are pushing so hard in the mainstream media, the Democrats, all these people are pushing so hard to not have this memo released because they know in one way or the other they will be facing consequences from this memo. Now, again, President Trump, the vote was Monday to release the memo in the House. The House said, we want it released, along partisan lines, at least along Republican lines. They said, we want it released. Now, President Trump has the authority to say that it can't be declassified. Well, Trump has within 5 days. Now, that's basically going to be Saturday would be the final day. Now, the word is that it's probably going to be released Friday, again, as I've said. Now, there was some speculation for a short while as to whether or not it was actually going to be released. Well, right after President Trump's State of the Union speech, which I thought was excellent, by the way, right after that speech, he was caught on a hot mic saying that he will 100% release the memo. And shortly after that happened, Sarah Carter, who is a journalist who's been on top of this, she has some really great sources, said that the FBI and Department of Justice want the FISA memo to have the names of the individuals that are going to be implicated to be redacted. So they want, and that's the whole point of, or in large part, that's the whole point of the darn memo, is to show who was involved in this illegitimate, illegal activity. I mean, so it's, that just completely defeats the purpose. And then right after that, the White House came out and said that it will release the memo and that it will not have the names redacted. So, it seems like the memo is going to be coming out. It's going to be coming out certainly within the next few days. More than likely, it's going to be tomorrow, Friday, that it actually winds up coming out. And the mainstream media jumped on this narrative that apparently some people in the FBI, FBI Director Christopher Wray, more than likely in particular, said that there were quote-unquote material omissions in the Nunes memo, And they also went on to say that the memo is actually factual. So what's in the memo is factual, but then they go on to say that there are material omissions, which was, as I'll break down here, is just an insanely idiotic response. So Devin Nunes actually responded right away to this, and it was a rather scathing response. So this is Nunes' statement from whitehouse.gov. Quote, "Having stonewalled Congress's demands for information for nearly a year, it's no surprise to see the FBI and DOJ issue spurious objections to allowing the American people to see the information related to surveillance abuses at these agencies." Yes, exactly. The FBI is intimately familiar with, quote, material omissions with respect to their presentations to both Congress and the courts, and they are welcome to make public, to the greatest extent possible, all the information they have on these abuses. Regardless, it's clear that top officials used unverified information in a court document to fuel a counterintelligence investigation during an American political campaign. Once the truth gets out, we can then begin taking steps to ensure our intelligence agencies and courts are never misused like this again. So just a bold, very, very clear, very scathing statement, rebuttal to the FBI. He's pointing out the fact that, it's very ironic that these agencies, the FBI and Department of Justice, are saying that, there are material omissions of fact when, in fact, the FBI chose not to inform Congress of the fact that they had a counterintelligence investigation, and that there may well have been material omissions of facts when it came to the FISA warrant, as he's clearly saying here, to the FISA warrant that led to the surveillance of the Trump campaign and the Trump transition team. So he's saying very clearly that there was misuse in these areas, and then it's just insanely ironic and hypocritical that these agencies that engage in these very same abuses are now saying that that they're actually concerned about that very same thing that they engaged in, when if they wanted to have any more of the underlying information put out there, Devin Nunes has said that they're free to put out any additional information that they want, and all they have to do is request that President Trump does that. So they're pretending like this information is prevented from being put out. It's not. They can put it out if they wanted to. It's almost certain that President Trump would be just fine with releasing that information, obviously, as long as it's not revealing sources or methods, which there's no reason it would have to, they could redact all of that and still put out the underlying information. So it's really just a desperate attempt from the FBI and the DOJ to try to push back on this memo being released, because many of the people that are still working at the DOJ and FBI, including Bruce Orr, including Peter Strzok, including Lisa Page, yes, all these people are still working at the FBI. Yeah, they got demoted and they got shuffled off to human resources and what have you, but they're still working there. And a lot of the people who are probably going to be implicated by the release of this memo are actually still there, still working there. And that's another thing that Devin Nunes was pointing out. So of course they wouldn't want it to be released, just like the Democrats, who are going to be implicated in their own way, just like the mainstream media, who are going to be implicated in their own way. All these people who came out with this Russian conspiracy theory for all these years are now going to see how incredibly foolish they were and how the criminal activity was actually on the other side. Well, so there was this idea that Christopher Wray, the FBI director, was possibly going to resign if this memo got released. And that was reported by CNN, breathlessly saying, oh, he's going to resign if it gets released. Oh, this just shows that, this memo is just horrible and partisan and it's all just a hit job on the Democrats or some such nonsense. Well, it turns out that may have been fake news. There was additional reports. NBC reported apparently that Christopher Wray came out and said that he is not in fact going to resign, even though he disagrees, apparently, now with the memo being released. Well, now I want to go to a very key revelation that came out and just highlights how absolutely corrupt this whole entire thing is. So Mueller, Robert Mueller, the special counsel who was appointed by Rod Rosenstein, who is now seemingly quite compromised himself, Robert Mueller is now pushing back the sentencing of Mike Flynn, the former NSA director who got indicted by Robert Mueller for lying to the FBI. Well, why would he push back Flynn's sentencing? There's a lot of people who are speculating. One thing that I heard, and I heard this from Dan Bongino, who has been doing yeoman's work, has been doing just excellent work. He has excellent sources, and he has been absolutely on top of this controversy now for a very long time. And he's really been at the tip of the spear of exposing, a lot of the abuses that were going on at the highest levels of our government. And I definitely commend him, absolutely for doing that. And he is pointing out that, and he's got sources saying that this may very well be the case, that the reason that Mueller's pushing back Flynn's sentencing is because it may very well be. Now remember, it was a FISA court application that allowed for the spying on General Flynn. When they spied on General Flynn, he was talking with the Russian ambassador, having conversations about sanctions and other things. They spied on him using a phony FISA court application from fake information from the Russians and the Democrats, who paid the Fusion GPS. They used this fake information to spy on him, and they had a transcript, an actual full transcript of this conversation, or these conversations that he's having with the Russian ambassador. Totally normal during the transition period, when you're going to be the incoming national security advisor. And they take transcripts of these conversations, and then they, basically went, and ambushed him and had an FBI interview that, he didn't necessarily know was going to be a official FBI interview in which he was under oath, or whatever. I mean, it's still a crime to lie to a FBI agent even if you're not under oath. Or so I guess he may actually not have been under oath under that. I'm not sure on that one, but in any case, he was interviewed by the FBI, and they, pulled out the transcript, and they're asking him about these conversations that he had. And he did nothing wrong, so he's just like, yeah, we talked about this and that. And he may have gotten, literally, if he said anything that was not in the transcript, word for word, they could technically get him for lying to the FBI. So it could have been anything that he said. See, the conversations he had themselves weren't criminal. It was the fact that he lied to the FBI, which again is just an insane an insane drop from the criminal charges of, colluding with a foreign government to change an election. Lying to the FBI. That's just nowhere near collusion with a foreign power to, engage in treason, basically. Just craziness. And this FISA application, this phony FISA application that they got to spy on Flynn and sabotage him, this phony FISA application may have been signed by none other than Peter Strzok, or he may have signed off on the documents that got the FISA application, is what I mean. So he put his entire reputation on the line, saying that this information that we are using to get a FISA application from the court is legitimate. Either it is information we know to be true, or it is information that we are getting from a source that we know to have provided accurate information in the past that has been properly vetted. Neither of those were the case. More than likely, he knew that it was actually false. That's what I think. And he may very well have been the one who signed off on this FISA court, on the documents to get the FISA application. And if that's the case, it would make perfect sense why they're pushing back this investigation, because Mueller knows full well that it is all a garbage investigation that is completely 100% illegitimate. And if he now follows through with sentencing Mike Flynn on the basis of this phony FISA application and, this illegal spy operation where they sabotaged Michael Flynn for having completely normal conversations with the Russian ambassador. If he, moves to sentence, to actually convict Mike Flynn on this, he is now going to be implicated himself in all of this illegitimate, behavior, probably, illegal behavior in many cases. And there's a thing called the fruit of the poisonous tree. Now, basically what that means is if an investigation was started on false pretenses or illegitimate or illegal pretenses, like, for example, bringing fake information to the FISA court and saying that it's true and accurate when you're either not sure or know it to be false, that would be a false pretense, and that would be what's called the fruit of the poisonous tree. So any information that was gained, even if they came up with criminal activity, which they haven't, which they didn't, none whatsoever, other than lying to the FBI over normal conversations, again. So even if they came up with criminal activity, under the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine or whatever, it would actually be illegitimate. It can't be used in a court of law. And it seems like it may very well have been Peter Strzok that signed off the FBI agent. This totally compromised FBI agent may have signed off on the, the documents that led to the FISA court application, that led to the spying on General Flynn, that led to his indictment. So it would be obviously a part of the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine, and it would be something that Mueller, as badly as he wants to, take down Trump, and I truly believe he does, he's not probably willing to, completely destroy himself in the process. So now you see the sentencing for Flynn getting pushed back, and that may very well be the reason why. So, just to wrap up, this whole investigation, the whole reason that the Obama administration pulled all this activity was because they have been engaged in massive, massive crimes. You're looking at criminal behavior, just highly, highly illegal criminal behavior, in my view, at the top levels of the Department of Justice, of the FBI. You had Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama both involved in massive scandals. Had Fusion GPS, just involved in all this, insane activity, getting information from Russians on Trump that's fake. Hillary Clinton was paying for the information. We now know that Obama's, one of Obama's organizations, Obama for America, was paying the very same law firm that was paying Fusion GPS, Perkins Coie, which is Hillary Clinton's law firm. you know, we're starting to find out more and more about Uranium One and Project Cassandra, two massive scandals that involve Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama directly. The Clinton email scandal is now, you know, being more and more exposed. We're finding out that Obama more and more was now, you know, a big part of this scandal and all these other scandals. And they were just involved on trying to get all this dirt on Trump. See, the whole point is they wanted to get dirt on Trump. They wanted Trump to be compromised as well. See, this is the theory that I think is right. This is the theory that Dan Bongino has, and I think it's right. They wanted to get dirt on Trump to implicate him as well in you know, some of these various scandals. They wanted to be able to compromise him to the point that he wouldn't be willing to actually expose, in the off chance that he became president. This was their insurance policy, as Peter Strzok said, that in the off chance that he became president, that he wouldn't actually be able to expose their scandals because he would be ensnarled in his own scandal. You know, which in some cases dovetailed with some of the scandals that Hillary Clinton and Obama were involved in. But the thing is, it didn't work. They didn't think that President Trump was going to become President Trump. They thought for sure Hillary Clinton was going to win. That's the insane hubris of these people. They were wrong. President Trump became the president. He didn't fall for any of their entrapment with the Russian lawyer, you know, Veselnitskaya, and this, you know, George Papadopoulos, and just all these, you know, these pathetic attempts that they had to try to entrap, you know, President Trump and get him involved in all this, you know, Russian collusion. It just didn't work. It's now imploding fully, and all their crimes are now going to be fully exposed. So, all I got to say is, it is time for the people to see the memo. It is time for these crimes to be exposed, and we need to have more than likely a purge of, you know, many people, at least in the top levels of the FBI and the Department of Justice. Some people need to face you know, criminal charges. Some people need to get in real trouble for this because these are massive scandals, and this is massively criminal behavior these people were involved in. And if they don't get in trouble, Hillary Clinton, you know, getting exonerated by the FBI was bad enough. But if no one gets in trouble for any of this, this is going to show that we live in a completely 100% lawless country. That it is a nation of men, not a nation of laws. And you know, this is a country that that doesn't have a history of standing up for complete tyranny. So I don't think that's going to work out too well. These people are going to be exposed, and they are going to go down, and they are going to you know, they are going to face severe consequences for all of this treasonous behavior that they were involved in. And I gotta say, loving every minute of it. So with that, all I gotta say is release the memo, release the Kraken, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe, please leave a comment, give me any suggestions on further videos, further topics. I'm going to try to get more into doing more news of the day and things like that, and post on a more regular basis. I'm just trying to figure out a little bit more of a rhythm with my schedule that I currently have working and everything. But in any case, I really enjoy you watching. Appreciate you watching this video. Again, I hope you enjoyed it. And please, you know, share it with your friends. And I hope it's been enlightening for you. So hopefully we get to see this memo. Hopefully it gets released. And tomorrow should be the day, or Friday, probably at the point I get this video uploaded, will be the day. So with that, I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and may the force be with you.